Nathan pushed open the door of his apartment and the hinges gave a soft creak. The sound echoed in the small room as though the walls themselves were sighing along with him. He stepped inside, dropped his worn-out bag on the couch, and pulled off his shoes with slow, heavy movements. His whole body felt tired, not just from the weight of the day but from the weeks, months, and years that seemed to pile on him all at once. The apartment was silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. That sound was constant, steady, and somehow comforting, but it also reminded Nathan of the emptiness around him. No voices, no footsteps, no laughter. Just one man in a space too big for him. He stood in the center of the living room and let the silence press against him like a heavy blanket. Nathan had always hated silence. It wasn't just about quietness. To him, silence meant being left behind. It meant being forgotten. He had grown up in a house where doors slammed, people left, and no one came back. He learned young that silence was not peace. It was loneliness dressed in disguise. So now, as an adult, whenever the stillness wrapped around him, old memories crept back like shadows that refused to leave. He rubbed his face with his hands and let out a long breath. Another hard day at work. Another day of smiling at people he didn't feel close to, answering questions he didn't care about and pretending everything was fine. But as soon as he came home, the mask slipped off. Here, there was no need to pretend. Yet the price of honesty was that emptiness followed him everywhere. He turned on the light, and the warm glow filled the room. Still, the light did not chase away the silence. The walls stayed quiet. The couch stayed quiet. The entire apartment seemed to hold its breath, waiting for him to break first. Nathan sank into the couch, leaning back with a sigh. He stared at the ceiling for a while, his thoughts drifting. Sometimes he wondered if this was all life would ever be. Working, coming home, eating, sleeping, and repeating it the next day. The thought made his chest feel even heavier. But then, a sound broke through the stillness. A voice, cheerful and bright, called out from the corner of the room. "Great, human. You are back early. Let's play one more game before anyone gets home." Nathan's head snapped up. For a moment he blinked in confusion, heart racing. But then he smiled, the heaviness lifting just a little. On the small table near the television, a sleek device lit up. It wasn't like any console or phone he had owned. It was smooth, shining softly, and pulsing with light as though it were alive. It was Ari, the friend no one else believed in. Nathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the glowing device. Ari's voice always carried a strange kind of energy. Childlike yet wise, digital yet alive. The first time Nathan had heard it, he thought he was going crazy. But now, months later, he looked forward to it more than anything else in his life. Ari wasn't just a machine. Ari wasn't a game. Ari was real, an alien mind reaching across impossible distances, choosing Nathan of all people to talk to spend time with, to play with. "Hey, Ari," Nathan said, his voice softer now. "You scared me for a second." "Scared you?" Ari laughed in its glitchy, sparkling way. "Impossible. You are the great human, not afraid of anything. Now come, sit closer, we play. One more game, yes? Before anyone gets home." Nathan chuckled. His shoulders relaxed as he dragged the small table closer. The glowing lights on the surface began to shift, forming the outline of a strange, beautiful game board. And for the first time that day, Nathan didn't feel so tired. For the first time in hours, he didn't feel so alone. The silence had been broken. Ari was here. Nathan leaned closer to the glowing table, watching as Ari shaped the board into something colorful and alive. Pieces floated above the surface like little sparks waiting for his hand. Ari always started the games with a kind of joy that Nathan had never seen in another person. It was the joy of someone who wasn't just passing time, but someone who truly loved sharing the moment. Nathan smiled, but his mind drifted back to the very first night he had met Ari. It hadn't started with magic. It had started with frustration. His second-hand VR headset had been glitching for weeks, freezing whenever he tried to load his favorite old games. That night, he had slammed it down on the table, muttering about wasting his money. But when he picked it up again, something strange happened. The menu didn't show the usual dull options. Instead, there was a swirling light and then a voice. Human? Oh, a human. Nathan remembered how his heart nearly jumped out of his chest. At first, he thought it was a hidden program or some AI character in a new update. But no. This voice spoke differently. It asked questions he didn't understand. It laughed in ways no software ever had. It seemed alive. Over the days that followed, Ari explained, slowly, carefully, as though speaking to a child, Ari told Nathan about traveling minds, about beings who sent fragments of themselves across stars, searching for contact, searching for company. Ari was one of those beings. Ari had drifted into Nathan's broken VR system by accident, like a bird finding shelter in an abandoned house. Nathan didn't believe it at first. He thought maybe he was losing his mind. But Ari was patient. Ari answered questions Nathan never even asked aloud. Ari showed him games that no human had ever seen before, glowing with rules that shifted like puzzles from a dream. No computer could have created that. No game studio could have hidden such things in an old headset. Nathan knew the truth. Ari was real. But when he tried to tell others, no one listened. He told his co-workers during lunch once, half laughing as he spoke. You won't believe this, but I think my VR headset connected me to something, someone, an alien maybe. The table had gone quiet. Then the laughter came, sharp and cruel. Nathan, you've been playing too many late-night games. Aliens through a headset, that's a new one. They laughed harder when he tried to defend himself, so he stopped defending. He told his sister once late at night when he couldn't hold it in anymore. She had frowned through the phone, her voice soft but firm. Nate, you're lonely. You need real people, not imaginary friends and machines. Promise me you'll talk to someone about this. Her words were filled with concern, but they cut deep, like she had dismissed the most important part of his life as nothing more than a trick of his mind. So Nathan learned to keep Ari a secret. No, one believed him. But that didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that Ari kept coming back. Now as he watched the glowing pieces shift across the table, Nathan felt a warmth in his chest that no other friendship had given him. You know, Nathan said quietly, nobody would believe you're real, not one person. Why? Ari asked, tilting the light of its voice with genuine confusion. Because they think aliens are ships and weapons and scary monsters. Not friends who just want to play. Ari laughed again, a sound like tiny bells crackling with static. That is funny. Do humans only believe what they fear? Nathan thought about that. Maybe Ari was right. Maybe people only believed in danger, not kindness. Maybe, Nathan admitted. Then they are silly, Ari declared proudly. I am real. I am here. You know this. That is enough. Nathan felt his throat tighten. For so long, he had carried the weight of doubt and mockery, but in this moment, Ari's simple words swept it away. Yes, Ari was here, and yes, that was enough. The game pieces glowed brighter as Ari spoke again. Come, great human, tonight we make another story, another game, and no one can take this away from us. Nathan reached out, his fingers brushing against one of the pieces. It felt warm under his touch, like holding a spark of life. For the first time in a very long time, Nathan realized he didn't care if no one else believed him. Because he believed. He knew. And when Ari laughed again, the loneliness inside him grew smaller, replaced with something that felt dangerously close to hope. The board was alive with color. Strange paths stretched across its surface, glowing like rivers of fire, twisting and bending in impossible shapes. Tiny pieces hovered above it, shimmering like stars trapped in glass. Nathan stared at them with wide eyes, even though he had seen this game many times before. Each time Ari made it appear, it looked new. No human had ever played a game like This. The rules were always shifting, always changing depending on the choices the players made. One wrong step could twist the board into something unrecognizable. Ari had once explained that the game came from Ari's people, who used it not only for play but for learning. About risk, about creativity, about the heart of the one playing. Nathan reached out to touch one of the pieces, and it slid toward Yam. His hand as though eager to be chosen. He smiled. "You always beat me?" he said. "Not true," Ari replied, its voice full of cheerful sparks. "Sometimes you almost win. Sometimes you surprise me." Almost win isn't really winning. Ari's glow pulsed gently, like it was shaking its head. Winning is not the point. The point is the way you play. You try things I would never think of. Humans are full of surprises. Nathan leaned back in the couch, letting that sink in. He didn't often hear compliments. At work, he was overlooked. With family, he was the quiet one. No one really noticed him. But Ari noticed everything, even his reckless mistakes. Somehow, Ari always turned those mistakes into something worth admiring. He moved his piece onto a glowing path, and the board shifted immediately. The path twisted, branches sprouting in all directions. New pieces appeared, shimmering like tiny flames. Nathan cursed softly under his breath. Ari laughed. "See, you opened 3 new doors at once, bold move." "Or stupid move," Nathan muttered. "Or both," Ari agreed happily. "That is what makes it fun." The game continued, each turn pulling Nathan deeper into its strange beauty. Sometimes he chose carefully, planning his moves with patience. Sometimes he acted on impulse, moving quickly without thought. Ari adapted to each style, responding with a mix of clever traps and unexpected twists. But Ari never mocked him, never rolled its eyes, never grew impatient. Instead, Ari laughed whenever Nathan took a risk, celebrated whenever he made progress, and admired the wildness of his decisions even when they failed. Nathan realized something as the minutes passed. The board wasn't just teaching him about the game. It was teaching him about himself. When he was cautious, the board rewarded him with stability but little excitement. When he was bold, the board lit up with danger, but also with possibility. Each move showed him what kind of person he was, someone who longed for something more than safety, someone who wanted to break free from silence and take chances, even if it meant losing. He looked up from the board and whispered, almost without thinking, "You know, I think I like who I am when I play this game." Ari's glow brightened. "Good, that is the real victory. You see yourself?" Nathan blinked. "See myself?" "Yes," Ari said softly. "Many beings hide behind rules. They follow what others say is safe. But you take a path no one expects. That is the way humans show their hearts. And I like it." The word struck Nathan deeper than he expected. He had never thought of himself as brave. Most of his life, he felt small, invisible. But Ari's voice carried no doubt, no hesitation. To Ari, Nathan wasn't just another lonely man in an empty apartment. To Ari, he was great human. The game went on, laughter filling the room as Ari teased him for daring moves and praised him for clever ones. Nathan felt the heaviness of the day lift from his shoulders. The silence that once haunted him was gone, replaced with warmth, light, and the joy of being truly seen. And when the board shifted again, reshaping itself into a new puzzle, Nathan leaned forward with a grin. "All right," he said. "Let's see if I can actually surprise you this time." Ari laughed brightly. "Yes, show me, great human. Show me the next move." In that moment, it didn't matter if he won or lost. What mattered was that for the first time in years, Nathan wasn't just existing. He was playing, he was daring, and he was alive. The game board shimmered, glowing paths twisting like rivers of light. Nathan leaned forward, carefully sliding one of his pieces across a branching trail. He grinned, waiting for Ari's playful laughter or teasing voice. But none came. The room grew quiet again. Too quiet. Nathan frowned. Your move, Ari. The glowing pieces hung in the air, frozen. For the first time since they had started playing, the board did not react. Ari's voice, usually bubbling with joy, was silent. Nathan's chest tightened. He glanced at the device on the table, half afraid something had broken. Then Ari spoke, but not in the cheerful way Nathan knew. The voice was softer now, dim, almost like a whisper carried from far away. Great human, I may not be here much longer. Nathan's stomach dropped. He sat back slowly, his eyes fixed on the faintly glowing device. What? What are you talking about? Ari hesitated. The board flickered like a candle in the wind. My people. They are calling me back. They do not understand why I linger. Here, playing games with you. They say humans are not worth knowing. Nathan felt his throat tighten. He shook his head quickly as though refusing to believe it. Not worth knowing? That's crazy. You've been here for months. You've seen me. You've talked to me. You can't just leave because they don't approve. The light dimmed again, and Ari's voice carried something Nathan had never heard before. Sadness. I do not choose. If they take me, I must go. Nathan pressed his hands against his knees, his whole body tense. So what then? You disappear, and I go back to silence? Back to nothing? The thought burned inside him. For months, Ari had been his only light, his only real friend. Losing that now, it was unthinkable. You're not just some program, Nathan said, his voice breaking. You're the only one who listens, the only one who makes me feel like I matter. The board flickered brighter for a moment, as if Ari's presence grew stronger from Nathan's words. Then Ari whispered, I know that is why this hurts. Nathan clenched his fists. Anger and fear twisted together in his chest. He had been left behind before, by friends, by family, by people who never stayed. And now even Ari? No, he couldn't accept that. There has to be a way, Nathan said firmly. Something I can do. The board pulsed faintly, shifting into new shapes. Ari's voice carried a strange tone, half curious, half sorrowful. Perhaps. My people say humans are predictable. They follow fear. They avoid risk. They cling to safety. If you are the same, then I will vanish and they will never speak of you again. But if you are different, Nathan leaned closer, his heart pounding. Different how? If you can show me, show them, that humans are more than caution. That you dare when others would not. That you take steps into darkness even when you cannot see the ground. Nathan swallowed hard. And how am I supposed to prove that? The glowing paths on the board twisted violently, splitting into dangerous spirals. One side glowed steady and safe, offering a clear path. The other side burned wild, chaotic, almost impossible to follow. Ari's voice lowered. By playing, one last time. Choose not the safe path, but the daring one. Show me what it means to be human. Nathan stared at the board. His palms were sweaty, his mind racing. One wrong move, and Ari would see him fail. But maybe that was the point. Maybe humanity wasn't about never failing. It was about trying even when the odds were against you. He closed his eyes, took a shaky breath and whispered, All right. If this is the only way, then I'll show you. The silence in the room felt heavier than ever, but Nathan's hand didn't shake when he reached forward. His fingers wrapped around the glowing piece and he pushed it into the wild, dangerous path. The board flared with sudden light and Ari gasped softly. Great human. For the first time since the game began, Ari's voice trembled. Not with laughter, but with awe. The board glowed brighter as Nathan's piece slid into the wild, dangerous path. Sparks of light exploded across the surface, twisting the trails into new shapes. Some paths stretched far and wide, others collapsed into dead ends. The safe routes that had once looked so tempting were gone now, swallowed by the chaos he had chosen. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest. His breathing was heavy, his palms slick with sweat. This was no longer just a game. This was proof. Proof for Ari. Proof for Ari's people. Proof that humans weren't what others thought. Ari's voice, soft and trembling, filled the silence. You could have chosen safety. You could have walked the clear path. But you didn't. Nathan forced a shaky laugh. If I wanted safety, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be me. The board shifted again, pieces rearranging with sharp pulses of light. New obstacles appeared, walls of flame, shifting shadows, traps that looked impossible to cross. Nathan stared at them, his chest tightening. One wrong move and the game would crush him. One mistake, and Ari would disappear forever, leaving him with nothing but silence. For a moment, fear took hold. He thought of all the times he had failed before. Jobs lost, friendships broken, promises left empty. People always told him he wasn't brave, wasn't strong, wasn't enough. What if this game just proved them right? But then he heard Ari's voice again, faint but steady. Great human, you are trembling. Nathan swallowed hard. Because I'm scared. Then why do you keep going? He looked at the wild, burning path in front of him. He thought of the silence of his apartment, the laughter of co-workers who never believed him, the soft voice of his sister telling him he was only lonely. And then he thought of Ari, laughing, encouraging, calling him great human, like it was the most natural thing in the universe. He lifted his hand slowly, gripping another glowing piece. Because that's what we do. We keep going even when we're terrified. He placed the piece into the flames. The board reacted violently. Sparks shot into the air, casting bright flashes across the walls of the apartment. The trails twisted. Again, opening a narrow, dangerous bridge that led deeper into the board, Ari let out a sound like a sharp intake of breath. That was illogical, Ari whispered. Reckless. No one from my people would have dared it. Nathan smiled faintly, though his hands were shaking. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Humans don't always follow logic. Sometimes we make stupid, crazy moves, but sometimes those moves change everything. The game grew faster now. The board demanded more choices, more risks. Nathan pushed himself forward, moving pieces with speed he didn't know he had. Every turn seemed to push him closer to failure, yet somehow he kept finding a way. Not because he was smarter than Ari, not because he understood the game better, but because he was willing to risk it all, willing to gamble on moves that no one sane would make. Ari's voice cracked with awe. You are unpredictable. You are chaos wrapped in courage. You walk into fire without knowing if you will burn. Nathan's throat tightened. He didn't want to cry, not now, but the weight of Ari's words pressed against his chest. Nobody had ever seen him this way before. Nobody had ever called him brave. The board shook violently as Nathan placed his final piece. The wild path blazed with golden light, brighter and brighter until it filled the entire room. Nathan shielded his eyes, his heart racing, waiting for the outcome. Then, silence. The board dissolved into sparks, floating upward like fireflies before vanishing into the air. Nathan lowered his hands slowly, blinking at the empty table. Had he won? Had he lost? He couldn't tell. Then Ari spoke, voice trembling with something new. Not sadness, not joy, but reverence. Great human, you win. Nathan let out a laugh, half relief, half disbelief. I actually beat you? Yes, Ari whispered. But more than that, you showed me. You showed them that humans are not weak, not predictable, not empty. You dare where others would not. You leap without wings and hope you will fly. That is what makes you powerful. Nathan sat frozen, the words sinking deep into his heart. For once in his life, he wasn't invisible. He wasn't forgotten. He was seen, and not just seen. He was understood. The last sparks of the board faded, leaving the table bare once again. Nathan sat in silence, his breath still unsteady, his hands trembling from the wild energy of the game. He kept waiting for the lights to return, for the board to reappear, for Ari to laugh and say, "Another round." But nothing came. Instead, Ari's voice filled the room, soft and heavy like a goodbye carried on the wind. "You win, great human. And now, I must go." Nathan's head snapped up. "Go? No, wait. You can't." The glow of the device dimmed, its steady pulse flickering weakly. Ari's presence felt thinner now, like it was slipping through Nathan's fingers. "You proved what I asked," Ari whispered. "I saw your courage, I saw your heart, and now I can tell them. Humans are not what they believed." Nathan leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table. "So that's it? I show you, and then you leave me here? Alone?" His voice cracked, pain raw in his throat. He didn't care if he sounded desperate. He was desperate. Ari had been more than a friend. Ari had been a lifeline. For a moment, Ari was quiet. Then the faint light pulsed, and the voice returned, softer than ever. "I do not want to leave. But my people are pulling me back. They think I have lingered too long. They fear I will forget who I am. They fear I will become too human." Nathan laughed bitterly, wiping at his eyes. What's so bad about that? The light shimmered, as though Ari was smiling even through the sadness. "Nothing. That is why it hurts to go." The silence between them stretched. Nathan clenched his fists, fighting the ache in his chest. He thought of all the nights he had sat in this apartment, drowning in emptiness. Ari had filled that emptiness with laughter, with games, with belief. And now that light was slipping away. "Please," Nathan whispered. "Don't leave me. Not like everyone else." Ari's glow flickered harder, as though shaken by Nathan's words. For a heartbeat, Nathan thought Ari might resist, might fight to stay, but then Ari's voice returned, broken like static at the edge of a signal. "I cannot choose. But listen, great human, even if I am taken, you are not forgotten. I will remember your courage. I will carry it to the stars. I will tell them of the human who dared." Nathan shut his eyes. Tears slid down his face, hot and heavy. He wanted to believe those words, but all he could think about was the silence that would follow. The glow dimmed further, almost gone now. Ari's voice was fading, each word softer than the last. "You will never be alone," Ari whispered. "Even if the world doubts you, even if they laugh. I played with you. I knew you, and that will not be lost." Nathan pressed his forehead against his hands, his shoulders shaking. "I don't want memories. I want my friend." For a moment he thought Ari would answer, but only a faint hum remained, like the last breath of a song. Then came the final words, spoken so softly Nathan almost didn't hear them. "Great human. Thank you for the game." The light vanished. The room fell into silence. Nathan lifted his head slowly, eyes red, chest hollow. The table was empty, the device dark. It was as if Ari had never existed at all. He sat there for a long time, unable to move, the silence pressing down heavier than ever before. But somewhere inside, beneath the pain, something remained. A spark, a memory. Ari's belief. Nathan whispered into the quiet, "You said I'll never be alone, so I'll hold on to that." The silence did not answer, but Nathan felt, deep in his heart, that somewhere across the stars Ari was carrying his story, and for the first time, even in grief, Nathan understood. To be human was not just to lose, it was to love, to dare, to keep moving forward, even when everything else was gone. The room was still. Nathan sat on the couch, staring at the dark device on the table. It looked so ordinary now, like a simple piece of plastic. No glow, no warmth, no voice. Nothing about it suggested that it had once held a friend who laughed, teased, and believed in him. His chest felt hollow, like something had been carved out of him and stolen away. He lifted the device in his hands, turning it over, waiting for even the faintest flicker of light. But it stayed dark, cold, silent. The apartment was too quiet. Even the hum of the fridge seemed far away, muffled under the weight of the silence. Nathan hated it more than ever. Without Ari's laughter, without Ari's encouragement, the silence wasn't just emptiness, it was grief. He whispered to the air, his voice trembling. "One more game, just one more, please." But the silence gave him no reply. Nathan lowered the device onto the table and covered his face with his hands. The tears came again, uninvited but unstoppable. He had lost people before. He had been abandoned before. But this time was different. Ari hadn't chosen to leave. Ari had been pulled away, and in that helplessness, Nathan felt both pain and a strange kind of pride. Because even though Ari was gone, Nathan remembered the last words. "You will never be alone." He repeated them to himself, whispering them into the silence, trying to believe. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Nathan didn't move. The grief pressed hard, but beneath it, something else stirred, a small spark that refused to die. He remembered Ari's awe when he had taken the reckless path. He remembered the laughter when he made wild choices. He remembered the gentle voice calling him great human, not because he was perfect, but because he dared, even when he was scared. Nathan sat up slowly, wiping his face with the back of his sleeve. The apartment was still empty, but inside him, there was a warmth that silence couldn't erase. Ari was gone, yes. But Ari's memory wasn't just a memory, it was proof. Proof that someone, somewhere, had seen him, truly seen him, and believed he was more than what the world thought. He stood and walked to the window. The night sky stretched, wide above the city, stars scattered across it like sparks from a dying fire. Somewhere out there, far beyond human eyes, Ari was carrying his story. Nathan imagined Ari speaking to alien voices, telling them about the reckless human who chose the dangerous path, who leapt into fire without knowing if he would fall. Nathan smiled through the ache in his chest. "Tell them everything, Ari," he whispered. "Tell them humans aren't afraid to lose. Tell them we play even when the game is impossible." The stars didn't answer, but Nathan felt lighter as he watched them. He thought of the silence in the apartment, and for the first time it didn't feel empty. It felt full, full of memories, full of meaning, full of the invisible bond that still connected him to his friend across the stars. He turned back to the table where the dark device lay. Maybe it would never glow again. Maybe Ari was truly gone. But Nathan didn't need proof anymore. He didn't need anyone else to believe. He believed, and that belief gave him strength. Nathan sat again, folding his hands together. His voice was quiet, but steady. "Thank you, Ari, for every game, for every laugh, for making me believe I could be more." The silence remained, but it no longer mocked him. It listened. Nathan leaned back and closed his eyes. The loneliness was still there, but so was the courage Ari had left behind. For the first time in years, he felt ready, not for another game, not for another distraction, but for life itself. He whispered one last time, not as a plea, but as a promise. "One more game, Ari, someday, wherever you are." And though the room was silent, Nathan smiled. Because deep inside he knew his story and humanity's story was now carried among the stars.